Hello and welcome to the Best Esport Industry Breakdown YouTube channel. Today I'll be analysing the PESEL framework and explaining how it impacts the esport industry. Today I'll be covering political economic factors within the esports industry and the impacts governing bodies around the world have on the esports industry today. The framework stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental. But why is this framework used? It encourages the development of external and strategic thinking. It can enable an organisation to anticipate future business threats and take action to avoid and minimise their impact. How does this relate to esports? Esports is an industry that is still in development. Because of this, it is essential that tasks are carried out in the correct fashion to ensure that the industry and its market remain steady, and I believe that the foundation of doing so is through the use of the PESEL framework. Due to the early nature of the esports industry and where it stands, political matters have a fundamental part in the overall success and development of the esports industry. Not only will political movements provide support and funding, but also a form of regulation to nurture the industry. Regulatory frameworks. An entity's legal and regulatory framework is the laws and regulations to which it is subjected. These can be enforced by governments of nations, boards and committees of companies or businesses, and other things such as terms of service as a social media platform like Instagram. But why is this used? The lack of regulation in the esports industry has caused a rise of concern regarding match manipulation, betting fraud, broader issues related to child protection, anti-corruption, and even anti-doping. Until recently, the esports industry has primarily relied on self-regulation. Within, broadly speaking, political factors, those driven by government actions and policies. Typically, political is often discussed in relation to matters such as government policies, international trade and corporate taxation, etc. In the UK, British esports stands as our governing body for esports. This was founded in 2016. To date, in the UK, there are roughly 39.9 million gamers. However, British esports don't have any real political or legal power. Within the UK, they focus on education and tournaments. Esports act as a voice in the UK to provide the government with direction on how to provide support for the esports industry in the UK. This can also be linked to legal, as governing bodies typically put out legislation and policies. Where British esports don't do anything directly themselves, they do help the government in making these legislation and policies. Using the PESEL framework to analyse countries and governing bodies with a world view, we can look at China as a good example. China is the world's largest market for the world's largest entertainment industry, gaming. Today, the number of Chinese gamers is about 740 million. This is bigger than the entire population of the US, Japan, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Its domestic market is worth more than $45 billion a year. In 2003, the China's General Administration of Sport included esport as an official sport. Now, this was huge for the esport industry, as it meant that loads of publishers were making games for esports. In addition to this, it meant that new players were playing these games. This led to a huge economic boom in the esports industry, as more people were wanting to play the games and make content on all sorts of games. However, as seen from the App in China article, through the Mobile Game Content Standard 2016, limitations and censorship came in. This was a huge political and economic, as well as legal and social factor for the esports industry as a whole, as it meant that publishers and players were limited to what they could make and play. The esports market in the UK stands at a whopping $228 million. Comparing this to the number to that of China, it is clear that China's cultural differences have had a huge impact on this, as it is way, way higher. As a result of these cultural differences, we are left with a huge amount of economic capital for esports in the East and the West, but when we look at regions such as Europe, it looks quite thin. Going into the future, it's clear that this needs to change. One of the ways that this will happen is through partnerships such as British Esports and Saudi Esports Federation. More on this later, as I believe it falls more under the economic category. Of relating to or based on the production, distribution and consumption of goods and services. Economics also in reference to finances. Esports examples of this could be monetization, ticket sales, cost and distribution of setups and peripherals, etc. In today's modern world, esports is a new industry. And comparing the overall popularity and economic value of esports against that of traditional sports, this becomes crystal clear. Golf 2024 estimates that the esports industry is currently valued at $2.4 billion, compared to that $1.4 trillion of traditional sports. Previously mentioned in my videocast, financial support from governing bodies would have a huge impact with the overall interest and success of the esports industry, in particular esports events. Saudi has started development of an esports resort, which would be revolutionary for the esports industry. Saudi has been heavily invested in the esports industry as well as traditional sports over recent years. To date, Saudi has invested billions into the esports industry. All of this aligns with Saudi's economic diversification strategy known as the Saudi Vision 2030, which is driving an economy-wide series of transformative investments into new cities, infrastructure, tourism, aviation, research and development, advanced technologies, etc. In 2024, Saudi has invested an additional $120 million. The British Esports Federation announced its partnership with the Saudi Esports Federation on October 9, 2023, said to include cultural exchange programs, internships, training and educational initiatives. Saudi Arabia says its investments in esports are an attempt to diversify its economy away from the petrochemicals, including as part of its Vision 2030 program. This partnership being seen as quite controversial, I believe that this partnership could bring a positive political and economic changes for both UK and Saudi. With this being new partnership, nothing can be said as of yet, only time time will tell. One way in which the esports industry can survive this so-called esports winter is through economic stimulus packages. An example that affects both political and economic is staff layoffs. Marker found in a recent study that the total number of jobs in gaming declined by over 19% from 2021 and 2022. Companies have largely blamed layoffs on focus. Gaming companies pursued ventures outside their core business, which are no longer sustainable as they once were. Governing bodies of companies and nations can offer economic stimulus packages that offer financial support to the esports industry. It's clear that governing bodies have a direct impact to the growth and overall stability of the esports industry. I hope that you can all understand the impact that this framework can have on a business when considered and compared with other factors. Thank you for watching.